Good morning, this is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant morning and, wow, 2 videos in one day. Anyway, before I start, please let me thank all of the people who watch these videos. They, I guess, range, my core viewership is about between 500-600 to 1,500, maybe a few more if it's a broader political issue. But thank you to all of you for staying with me and following my journey. I don't know whether it is, well, I hope it's interesting to you as it is to me, but there you go. But anyway, I promised a video about purging the experts, and we really do need to take a moment to get rid of some of these people who are basically more than prepared to sell the family jewels to lie on a piece of paper or to misrepresent on a piece of paper, you know, the real things that are going on in this world, because you know you want to have a particular agenda filled. And one of the heads of actually Ontario Hydro, or Hydro One as it's now known, was Maurice Strong, and he is notably quoted as saying, if I can get people to ask the wrong question, I don't care what the answer is. And this has led to a lot of the chicanery that happened or is happening through scientific work around global warming, where, you know, when you look at the charts of the predictions, and we'll put that up, you know, they're all over the place. I mean, really, if you were to ask to make a decision on, say, an investment based on the potential predictions put out by the climate change scientists, I don't think you would move at all. So it is this inaccurate reporting, it is the fear-mongering. You may or may not remember that back in the 70s we were supposed to go into an ice age. And yes, we did cool for a few years, and now we're starting to warm, and no doubt we will cool again. This is just a repeating cycle. And yes, we should use this as information, but it shouldn't be used to fear-monger. And I think that we also need to have school children taught, either by their parents, I guess should be their parents, to be more discerning about scientific information. Again, you know, read the rules, read these reports, read the white papers, all of the information that you need to actually trip up these so-called experts, because they know they have to put some kind of a disclaimer in there, some kind of line that says, well, we only said maybe, we just said this was a possibility, we didn't say this was a for sure. So they know, and just look for that escape clause. And I mean, the truth is that none of us really know for sure what's going on this planet. We're all sort of scratching around trying to find answers. And you know, what happens is, as humans, you know, because we want things to resolve to perfect numbers, you know, you'll see that in so many of the major equations and algorithms, there is a constant in there. So, for example, when they wanted to measure, you know, how much solid material there was in the universe, they had to put a constant in there to deal with dark matter, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that it's filled with something, but they don't know what it is because they can't see it. So they have to put, you know, like a constant in there to deal with the stuff that they don't know about. The equation with a circle, pi r squared, you know, pi is incalculable. You know, the relationship between the diameter and the circumference of a circle is incalculable. And this gives you, again, an idea that we know there's a relationship between the diameter and the circumference, but you can't actually resolve that, because nature has its own particular resolve, and only nature knows that resolve. And so we can only bump along on the back of nature and try and predict by looking in the rear view mirror what the future is going to look like. And there are so many scenarios, but to get fixated on one possible scenario and saying that that's it. And I'm sure that what we're going to find out in the end, especially with climate change and that kind of stuff, is that some people are going to experience baking, and some people are going to experience freezing, and some people are going to experience wet, and that will move around, and you're going to see rain where there wasn't rain, and you'll see deserts where there wasn't deserts, because This is what the planet does. The climate changes all the time. But for us to make these massive economic decisions that we've just made based on the predictions of experts, which have now been proven to be completely off base, and they're scrambling. They are scrambling to cover up their mistakes, just like the climate change scientists are now scrambling to explain why there is this huge diversion between the predictions of all these different scientists. So we have to learn that, and I think we need to have a purge of the scientists, because we cannot go forward like this. You can see the chaos that it's causing, because now nobody knows for certain what they can place faith in. You know, I find we live now in a very uncertain world because the computer modeling are trying to predict all of the possible changes that there can be, and there are more changes than you can predict. And so how can you prepare for all of this? You just have to be flexible. Anyway, let me read you this article. I think you will agree with the author that yes, it is time to purge the scientists, and it's time to depoliticize the scientists. Okay, here we go. And this from Zero Hedge. It's time to purge the experts. And this is authored by Wesley Smith via the Epoch Times. The United States military mission in Afghanistan has collapsed in chaos and ignominy. The catastrophe has many parents, but surely the experts upon which our leader relied bear much blame. They were the ones who often failed to comprehend the power of religious belief and the role pride in Islam played in the Taliban's unyielding commitment to victory. They were the ones who thought we could remake Afghanistan into a Western liberal image. They were the ones who failed to comprehend the intractable tribal nature of Afghan society. To say the least, Afghanistan has vividly exposed the utter stupidity of our vaunted foreign policy and national security experts. Our hapless Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, for example, assured us that Kabul would not fall from Friday to Monday. And he was right. It fell from Friday to Sunday. And what are we to make of the vaunted internationalists at the United Nations? After President Biden's god-awful speech signifying nothing, the State Department held a press briefing during which spokesman Ted Price reiterated an unintentionally hilarious United Nations Security Council statement urging the Taliban government to be inclusive and representative, including with the full, equal and meaningful participation of women. I'm sure the barbarians will get right to including women as soon as they're finished raping them. The hubris of these wizards might be tolerable if they were adept at technocracy, but they stink at it. Indeed, every American debacle in my lifetime has experts' fingerprints all over it. There was the Bay of Pigs fiasco, Vietnam, the farce of the missing Iraq WMDs. The list goes on and on. What's that you say? The Cuban Missile Crisis worked out very well? Indeed it did, but that was because JFK ignored the advice of military experts to bomb Cuba. What about the collapse of the Soviet Union? Once again, that salutary event was hastened because President Reagan ignored experts' widespread disdain of the Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars, program and forged ahead anyway, which helped break the communist treasury. Look at China. Our China hand experts were sure that if we boosted the country's economy, Chinese people would demand increased freedom to go along with their improved standard of living. Not only did that demand not materialize, except in the now crushed Hong Kong citizens' reaction to the loss of their once existing freedoms, but we are looking increasingly like China instead of it looking more like us. That's an interesting comment, but we are looking increasingly like China instead of it looking like us. Worse, we are now dependent on that tyranny for much of our manufacturing and mining of crucial natural resources like rare earth metals. Great job, experts. Foreign policy is far from the only field afflicted with debilitating expertise. The public health failures during CV could, and no doubt will, fill several books, but the botched investigations and repeated mendacity surrounding the questions of whether the virus escaped from the Wuhan Institute of Virology are particularly enraging, not to mention the US funding of gain-of-function research conducted there championed by Dr. Anthony Fauci. Speaking of the hubris of the expert class, Fauci wrote last year that WHO and the UN should be empowered to rebuild the infrastructure of human existence in order to avoid future pandemics. Considering their repeated record of abject failure, putting the international experts in charge of such an all-encompassing project would probably return us to the caves, and that's what's happening right now. Okay, mark my words, that's actually what's happening right now. And so be aware. And look what has happened in the medical sector, where our experts are helping to drive the transgender moral panic. Major medical journals and associates even promote puberty blocking for children despite its being, at best, entirely experimental and potentially physical harmful to the patients. Good grief! The American Medical Association even urges that we stop listing the sex of children on birth certificates. And we haven't yet mentioned the misbegotten California public policies recommended by climate change experts that have reduced the once golden state to a third world environment of rolling blackouts, out-of-control wildfires, and inadequate water storage because no new reservoirs have been built for decades. This, even though the state's population grew exponentially. Good grief, farmers in the Central Valley have begun ploughing under their precious almond trees. Failure after dismal failure has caused mass distrust in the expert class and a concomitant collapse of confidence in our institutions. This is a profound crisis. We need expertise, people who know what they are talking about and who can explain complicated issues to policymakers and the people who are essential to the proper operation of sophisticated democratic societies. But to do that job right, experts need to be apolitical. They need to provide as objective advice as they can when wearing their expert hats. Most of all, they need to put personal ideology aside in the performance of their duties and welcome heterodox opinions. For example, it wasn't ideology that created the triumph of the moon landing. It was dispassionate excellence in rocket science and engineering. The problem is that too many of our current experts in foreign policy, law enforcement, science, education, the medical intelligentsia, and the list goes on, have become highly politicized. Some even now think that they should be deciders rather than advisors. That attitude doesn't make policy more expertly based, it makes expertise more politically motivated, which is to say, it ceases being expert at all. Creating a paradigm in which we can again safely rely on experts will require a great culling of the four specialists now perched in powerful government and think tank sinecures. Frankly, mass resignations or firings may be the only efficacious remedy for what ails us. The time has come for the great sorting out to begin. Well said. So I hope you enjoyed that article as much as I did, and to remind yourself, to question these scientists, just don't take on face value. And one of the things that always tips me off to something is when I see something like, the Al Gore film, Inconvenient Truths, okay? When you get a package like that kind of answers all of the questions superficially to get them out of the way, and it doesn't leave you any room to ask further questions or to think about what's going on, just to accept the package, I get very, very suspicious. When I see new words, I knew as soon as I heard the word presumptive that there was something completely fishy going on about the whole CV situation. Okay, when have you ever heard the health department or the government use the word presumptive to describe a cold, a presumptive case? I've never heard of that before, and I digest a lot of media from the mainstream to alternate media, and so when you see stuff like that, that should be a little trigger, a little red flag in your head that's going, oh wait a minute, I think I'll read the whole article. There's something about that is just really, really fishy. So use these clues, and let the buyer beware, because there are many charlatans, and again, as I said before, we're going to have to start making our own critical judgments based on our observations, not on what someone is telling us is happening. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to leave you to enjoy the rest of your day, and in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant morning, and we'll talk very, very shortly. See you now. Bye.